Welcome, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening from wherever you're joining us at this moment. And thank you for joining the Microsoft 365 Community Conference Workshop Preview Series powered by our strategic partner, Techly. This is the final days of our 3-week run. Every Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, we've been featuring a sneak peek into the workshops scheduled to be presented at the main event in Orlando this April. If you're watching live through one of our streaming channels, check out the QR code up there, and that will be our online schedule of the upcoming events for this preview series. In February and March, we're hoping to have discussion points where we have panels with Microsoft speakers, community speakers discussing the different topics and the different session areas that will be presented at the event. So we hope for sure to see you in Orlando at the Microsoft 365 Community Conference. And without any further ado, I'd like to introduce our presenters, Matt Wade and Pete Simpkins.
Great. Thanks so much, Lyman. I appreciate the introduction and for the opportunity to talk today about the workshop that we are going to be doing at the M365 conference later this year. So as most people are probably aware, when they come into the Copilot world in M365 these days, there is a lot you can do with it. So Copilot shows up all over the place. The fact that it's grounded in all of that good data that you have in M365 is just get my screen completely shared here. Running into all that M365 goodness, your emails, your chats, your meetings, all of that good content is the right place to be for your Copilot journey. One thing that we do find from people afterwards, though, is that they run into a scenario where they find Copilot in all of these places, and it's always going after all that content that's inside of M365. But what happens when you have a scenario that you want to work through content that is more scoped, more specific, and that you want to control? Because there's a lot of information out there. You have all of this email that builds up. You have all of these Teams chats that build up, all of these Teams transcripts that build up, and files. People collect stuff, right? They're not great at hygiene of content, even if they do force themselves to do a spring cleaning once in a while. So we want to ask the question of what is the right answer to how do I deal with the fact that I might not have a lot of, or I might have too much stuff. And if you ask that in industry right now, or if you went to Copilot yourself and you asked it, it's going to tell you to go to something called Copilot Studio, formerly known as Power Virtual Agents. Copilot Studio has gotten a bit of a reputation that potentially it doesn't fully deserve. And that's because it has a bit of a learning curve that the typical user just doesn't necessarily have the ability to get through. So if you are looking to take your Copilot experience to the next level, Copilot Studio sounds like it's going to be the obvious next step. But if you're just a general user, somebody in HR or finance or procurement, or even in an engineering or a marketing space where you might have a little more technical skill set, it still might be a little bit too much. So when you want to just tell a bot, I want you to know this information. Here's a collection of a bunch of documents. These documents are the only things that I want you to know and understand and reference whenever somebody comes to you and asks a question. You can do that. And that is a very fundamental use case, something that Copilot Studio can do, but it's a little bit harder. There's a learning curve. And there are just too much of a need for people to be able to do this without having to go into a low-code, no-code tool, especially one that costs more. So that's why we're here today. My name is Matt Wade. I'm a Microsoft MVP in the Copilot space, and I'm the co-founder of Jump to 365. And I'm joined today by my buddy Pete.
Hey everybody, I'm Pete Simpkins. I'm an applications architect for a company called Omni Workspace, also a Microsoft Global Community Initiative regional leader and partner too.
Sweet. So if you're familiar with Copilot and how it works, you have probably seen this graphic. If this is new to you, this is a nice little way to see how Copilot works with the data that you already have in M365. Now we're talking M365 Copilot. This is the premium version of Microsoft 365 Copilot, not the Copilot chat that comes with the E3, E5 licenses at this point. This is the add-on that you're going to have and want to use. And the big thing about this is the Microsoft Graph. So this is all of that information that you have at your disposal in M365. Before Copilot existed, your search box looked at the same information essentially. So it's not new information. It's indexed the same way, but you are getting some more smart AI aspects to it. Sometimes the search box wasn't as smart as it should have been. Now we're going to get some of that smarts to it. But the downside to that is that all of that information, as good as it might be or bad as it might be, just putting Copilot on top of it doesn't really change things. So you can still have a terrible experience because there's so many copies of Work Scope 1 or Contract X that sit out there, and Copilot can't necessarily be smart enough to go out and figure out which one is the right one. It's probably using some smarts behind the scenes. This one's been edited more recently, so I should pull the information from that one and not the one that was last edited last year. But that doesn't necessarily give you a guarantee. Somebody could have edited the wrong one recently, right? So there is human behavior aspects to this that are definitely things to be looking at.
So if we were to talk through some of those difficulties, Matt already kind of touched on the out-of-the-box SharePoint or Microsoft Search functionality. Now, it takes a lot of extra effort for a business to go through and actually clean up, delete, archive, manage the lifecycle, a lot of that content. Now, if you were to take it a degree further, there's even more effort involved in helping going through and make sure that you're tagging your content appropriately and designing a metadata strategy, even at a site level. Now, it's way harder if you start to expand that strategy out to a tenant-wide metadata strategy for taxonomy and content management. And that's where we think that Copilot or SharePoint agents are going to help kind of step in and make it easier to interact with your content. So when we talk through SharePoint agents, there's really two types of agents that we're going to be discussing during our session. It's going to be site agents, which these are going to be scoped or grounded into an entire SharePoint site. So that it'll include all of the content within that site. And we're also going to have scoped agents. And these are going to be items or agents that are focused in on specific files, folders, libraries, whatever you decide to point them at in particular. Now, if we want to take a look at an example of a site agent here, we have a little video of a human resource site where we have a site agent built where someone could go out and they could ask questions around the information in the site. In this case, the question is around pay range information for a specific role, the project manager. And as you can see in the video, it actually comes back with a lot of information, and it even includes a link out to the resource that it's referencing within that site. Now, as we continue to drill down into the content of that file that it's referencing, you'll be able to see it includes the same information it provided back into the prompt here. Now, it doesn't have to be a generalized question like this. You can also dig into more specific information, like you could ask for a specific role, like the associate PM role. And you'll see that the response comes back with just the information that's related to the associate PM, which I believe the pay scale on this one was 12 to 20. There we go, perfect. Now, additionally, you can go through and ask contextual questions. So in this case, there's a question around whether or not the role or that value also comes back with a bonus. And you'll see that it's actually going to provide not just the context around the bonus structure, but it's also able to go elaborate and say, you know what, a lot of times with compensation packages, benefits are also a factor. So it includes a paragraph down below that even explains some of the additional information about 401k and time off and so on, related to that request. So it's able to help provide that full scope context. Now, this is the whole site option. If you wanted to drill down into more of that scoped agent option, we're showing quickly how you can quickly build out a scoped agent link to just 2 documents here. With no code, no experience, you can go through and you can very quickly create an agent, give it a name here. It's always helpful to provide a very descriptive description as we go through. This helps both users as well as admins understand what's the purpose of that agent. And we'll give a quick description here quickly. And then as you start to go through, we'll have the option to go choose what sources do you want the agent to be referencing when you start to prompt. And in this case, you can quickly navigate between the multiple libraries within a site if there are some. You can even go through and select individual files. So if you wanted this to only reference maybe the employee handbook, you can see that it quickly adds it there. Now, the last piece that you can change is actually the behavior functionality within that agent. So right here, you'll see that we're prompted to provide a welcome message. This is the first little bit of text that pops up when a user starts interacting with the agent. And you'll see that as we add a description here or a welcome message, over on the right-hand pane, you're actually going to see those changes update in real time. So you're able to very quickly see the information or the activities that you're adjusting. The next part that you can do is you can also go through and set up some starter prompts. These might be little information starters or questions that your users reference quickly or frequently, so that they don't have to go through and remember to type them out. They'll just show up as 3 options that they can click on, and it'll kickstart that activity with your agent right away. And then the last option that you'll have during the setup is actually instructions for the agent. So this is how you want your agent to interact. And the nice part of this is you can write this out in just standard text. Again, you don't have to know code. You can just describe the type of experience that you want to have. In this case, I believe the sentence that we're typing says, be helpful, because the types of questions received are very intimate. So you can provide not just tactical, but also emotional kind of descriptions around the way the agent's going to interact. And then when you're done, you'll see that you can quickly jump out and you can use that agent directly within the site. All of those same settings we just set could pop up. If you choose any of those starter messages, it's a quick and easy way, again, that you can start interacting. And you'll see here that it'll come back with a response to the what are the levels of employees within our organization. Now, the last thing that I'll highlight there was that when you do create your agent, it does create a file for you there, which then becomes something that your team or whoever has access to the site can interact with. It also provides another level of collaboration, which we'll cover in our section in a little more detail. There you go. Thanks, Matt. Thanks for highlighting that. There's our agent file. So we do want to highlight that collaboration functionality too when we get into how does this fit into your daily work and the way that you interact with others. So other things that we'll get into, we'll obviously talk about everyone's favorite topic with Microsoft, which is licensing. So what do you need to have access to SharePoint agents? We'll dig into the various use cases there. I plan to also lead some discussions. So we'll do some ideation sessions, some group breakouts to help focus in on what could be a potential use case for your team or your business. And through all of that development, it's only worthwhile if you have successful adoption and change management. So we'll help go through with some tips and tricks around what's the best practice for rolling out agents within your business area. How do you help continue to drive ongoing adoption and measurement of those changes, and just in general encourage good usage. And likewise, we talked about this. We're in that middle sweet spot with SharePoint agents. There are some limitations and caveats around its usage and what it's really good for. So throughout our session, we'll make sure that we understand and describe really what can you do, what can't you do, what's your next step for growing out of this too. So Matt, do you have anything else to add into this section?
I think I would just say that our intent is that you'll walk away from this full day session with us with something that you can run with the next day if you want to. Right. So as long as you have an M365 Copilot license or you're willing to pay for the pay-as-you-go Copilot Studio bot messaging license, which is the underlying necessity if you don't want to pay for the M365 licenses, you will be able to apply these things that day, bring that back immediately to your organization and start talking to people about what is it that they want to do. And I think the biggest takeaway or sort of surprise people will have, Pete, correct me if you disagree here, is that this is not so much a technology rollout as it is a content management one, right? It's about finding good content, or at least separating the good content from the stuff that just piles up over time, right?
Yep. No, that's a good call out. we might need to include some tips and tricks on even some of that content management governance process.
Yep, definitely. All right. So that closes out what we're talking about at our workshop at the M365 conference. We're really looking forward to seeing everybody coming by, learning that much more about how they can take Copilot or M365 Copilot and make it that much better, but make it in such a way that it does not require developer support, the learning curve of having to understand and learn how to use low code and no code tool sets, and basically allow all those local organizations and customer centers inside of your company to be able to provide customer support so that those people can be doing more subject matter expertise based work and not have to deal with all of the Q&A that they probably get on a regular basis. So with that, I'd say thank you. Thank you, Pete. Looking forward to seeing you in April. And thanks to the M365 conference for having us.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, guys. Thank you so much for taking the time today to give us a sneak peek preview into your workshop material. This presentation is being recorded or has been recorded and will be made available for on-demand viewing on Matt and Pete's workshop page on the conference website. So once again, thank you for joining us. At 3 p.m. Mountain Time here this afternoon, we will have another workshop preview of creating bespoke search experiences, how PnP Search fills the gap in the modern digital workplace with Rebecca Rogers. See you then, and hopefully see you in Orlando.